Hey guys, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at domain and range of a function. So we're going to now just take it up a notch from looking at what functions are to now looking at their domain and range. So first thing we're going to look at is I want you to take out packet one and skip to page 6, and we're going to fill out the information as we go along. You will have to pause the video to make sure you're taking the proper notes throughout the video, okay? So here's the first one. On here, it says, how do we determine the domain and range of the function? So the domain is just a fancy way of saying the x values of a function. It's the first element of an ordered pair in a function, or the left-hand side of a table. The range are the second element in a ordered pair, or the y values. So one way we try to remember it is that the X and the D go together and the Y and the R go together, meaning in alphabetical order, D comes before R, X comes before Y. So this is just a very big vocab word that you're going to need to remember in order to find your domain and range. All right, one other thing we need to review is the next thing, which would be here. Underneath it, it says how to understand interval notation and set builder notation and roster form. Now, all three of these different notations all mean the same exact thing. They all look extremely different, but they all generate the same exact numbers. So this little symbol here just means include. And then this little symbol here as a review, when we did inequalities, means don't include. So what that means is we are going to list the numbers from 2 to 9, include 2, but don't include 9. Now, in set builder notation, we want all the numbers for x that are greater than or equal to 2, but less than 9. So that means start at 2, list them 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but don't include 9. Same thing here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but don't include 9. And roster form is just how we write it listed out. So we're going to have to use a couple of these different notations when we're going through finding the domain and range. So I just wanted to review that for a little bit. I think it will become a little bit more evident as we go on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the bottom of the page here, and we want to state the domain and range of the functions that are listed. So first of all, when you're given a set of points, your domain are just all your x values. Now, I'm just going to label it with D because I can't really write domain. What we usually do is write them from least to greatest. So since -4 is the smallest, and I'm going to put it in squiggly wigglies, we're going to put -4, comma, -9 is actually the smallest. My bad. So we're going to erase that. Sorry about that. -9 is the smallest. So we're going to start with -9. And we're going to write -4. And then 4, and then 8, because we're listing them from least to greatest. It doesn't matter if you do that or not, but we usually use squiggly wigglies to show that. And now our range is just our y values. So we're going to list 3, -6. We're going to erase this off. We're going to write 0 and 5, but we'll put them from least to greatest. So I'm going to write these in red. I'm going to put -6 comes first, then 0, then 4, then 5. So those are your domain and ranges for a set of numbers. You just list them. Now for a map, whatever is being connected in your map is part of your domain and your range. Since A, B, and C are all being connected, those are our domain. And then we have our D and E, those are just going to be our range. So when they ask you for your domain, you would write A, B, and C. And when they ask you for the range, you're just going to write D and E. Now we're going to go down to here to the next one on the bottom. They want the domain and range for the following functions. Now the domain is just the 3 numbers in your X value of the table. So your domain You just need to know to look at the X column. 3, 5, and 7. And then we're going to go to our range, which is our Y column. I'm going to label it with an R, is 4, 6, and 8. So generally speaking, you just have to list them. But it gets a little bit more confusing here when we start to look at a equation of a function. And this little notation down here is our domain. It just tells us what we're going to use in our table for our x. So we're going to list from -2 to 3 on our table. Okay? And then we want to find the corresponding y values. So now what we need to do is we need to get our calculator up. We need to go to y equals, and we have to put that function in 2, x, which is over here, exponent button, which is your caret symbol right there. And we're going to put a little 2 in there, get out of the exponent, -5. Now to find the corresponding y values, you have to get to your table. So I'm going to do second graph, get my table. I got to scroll. So -2 is at the top of my table. So I will write my y values that go along with it on the screen. 3, -3, -5, -3, 3, and then the 3 goes with 13. Oh, I apologize for the messiness. But when you're looking for your range now, because we know our domain is this, our range is going to be our y values. But the key here is you want to make sure you look for the smallest number in the range to the highest number in the range. And we're going to use this notation over here with the inequality symbols to show our range. So -5 is the smallest number in our range, which is our y value, and it goes up to 13. The reason why we need to do that is because if you go back to your graph, your table, and you graph it, you'll notice that the graph is a continuous function. It doesn't just stop at those points, it goes through all of those points. So you need to make sure that you know you're connecting from -5 down here all the way up to 13. So that would be how you would write your range. Okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go on to the next page. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to look at these problems. Numbers 4 and 5. 4 and 5, 5 and 6 are a little bit more challenging because they're graphs. So when we're looking for the domain, I'm going to look for the smallest and the greatest x value. So the best way to do that is to use a box. Now what we do is we're going to draw a box around this function straight up. And the reason why I'm using those for different colors here is because those are my x values. And then I'm going to use blue. I'm going to connect the box. Again, it's going to be a nice rectangle to get my y values. I'm going to keep going down here. All right, so my range is going to start at this number. My domain is going to start at that number and end at that number. And because there's an open circle down there, I need to know I have to use this inequality symbol. So I'm starting my domain at -3, which is my smallest x value. And then I'm going to go, it's equal to that. And I'm going to go all the way over to 4 on my x-axis. So my domain is going to be -3 to 4, but not including 4 because of that open circle. Now my range. I'm going to go from this number down here all the way up to that number up here. So my range is going to be -5, and those are all including, so I'm going to use my equal to signs, all the way up to 3. So really what you're doing is you're just looking for the leftmost point on the graph to the rightmost point for your domain. And then you're going to look for your upper point. So you're looking for this guy here to this guy here. And this is a closed circle and an open circle, so that's why we use those symbols. And then for the y, you just want to make sure that you're using the smallest point down here to the largest point up here, and they're both equal to. So we went from -5 to 3. So that would be how you find the domain and range of a graph. Now, the last one we're going to look at is something like this. And the reason why I saved this for last is because these have arrows at the end. And when you have arrows at the end, it means there's no restrictions. You can't put a starting point and a stopping point on some of your values. So here, when I want to box off the x just keeps going on and on forever. There's no way to put a start and a stop to this x value. So that just means our domain, since there's no start or stop, is going to be all real numbers. Domain is all real numbers. Now, for our range, this one we definitely can say it goes all the way down to here, but there's no place to ceiling it. I can't put a top to it because it goes all the way up. So we know -6 is the smallest in it, but it goes all the way up to infinity. So you can either state that -6 is the smallest y, and it goes all the way up to infinity like that. Or you could just state that the range is greater than or equal to -6. That's another way to use it, or say it using inequality notation. These are the hardest questions. You are definitely going to get to those in Algebra 2. So if the graphs are challenging for you, don't worry. I've never seen them on a Algebra 1 Regents, but I like to expand your brain. So just make sure that when you do these, that you can find the domain and range of a table and of a set of points. Okay? So I want you guys to make sure that you pause this video and make sure you get all these notes down. If you didn't get all these notes down, please go back through and get them. And then once you have taken down all the necessary notes, I want you to go back to the Google Classroom and see if you guys can find the domain and range of the functions that are on the Google form. Now, these are the same questions that are in our classwork packet, but I just put them in a digital format so I could see what you guys are getting. I'm going to make them into multiple choice questions for you. All right, good luck. And if you have any questions, just email me, okay? Have a good day, guys.